women, we always want to be perfect. We always want to know it all. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to try.
Welcome to the Empowerista podcast, female entrepreneurs finding freedom and fulfillment in their life and career. I'm your host, Alex Worley, the founder and CEO of Empowerista, an award-winning producer and national TV host, seen on platforms like Business Rockstars, Entrepreneur.com, and Amazon Prime. I am so excited to share my candid conversations with successful women, amazing women, as they reveal the tips and truths they've learned on their entrepreneurial journey. My guest today is Sharon Chuter, the founder and CEO of UOMA Beauty, an Afropolitan makeup brand. During her career journey, Sharon helped bring Revlon to Nigeria. Now she's taking the beauty space by storm with her own makeup brand by not only embracing inclusivity and diversity, but by also embracing individual identity.
You have the most fascinating life and fascinating background. You were born and raised in Nigeria, spent most of your adult life in Australia.
Yes.
Now you're in London and LA.
Now
wow.
I'm a global citizen.
Yes, you are
it that way.
global
I'm a true
citizen.
global citizen. And it's the same thing with my accent. People try and figure it out. They're like, where's that accent from? You know, is that, I'm like, it's a Sharon accent, you know, because it's representative of my journey, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I say words and you hear the whole Nigerian thing comes out of it. Sometimes you hear the Australian inflection with every word, and sometimes you hear the British that comes in with the T's and like, so it's just like whatever comes out. It's like, it's a global accent. It's my accent. There you go.
I love it, and it's a beautiful accent,
Thank you.
the way.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your upbringing, your background, and
Yes.
how it's influenced you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Nigeria. So my formative years, as I call them, were pretty much in Nigeria. And then I left as a teenager, went to Australia, and then, you know, have worked around the world as well. And, you know, here I am. But I think for me, growing up Nigerian was so important because it really shaped my identity. It really shaped who I am, and it really shaped my core. And I think as a human being, that's the most important thing, like finding your core, especially at a young age, because it's sort of what you fall back to. So when I think about myself, even growing up, I was always a rebel. I was always the outspoken one. I was always the one who would use words like, it's not fair, but that's not fair. You know what I mean? And it was so interesting as well because the cultural norms in Nigeria are completely opposite to Australia. So for me, when I remember moving from Nigeria to Australia, and I mean, Nigeria is such a like, drive, go get them, you know, parents are tough on you, you know, they want you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. You know, there was a joke back home that there's only 4 professions in Nigeria: doctor, lawyer, engineer, or disappointment. So I'm a very proud disappointment right now. And you know, so growing up in that kind of environment, you know, Nigeria, I'm not sure if you know, right now, it's a country of almost 200 million people. So you think about that, and in North America as a whole is 360, I think now, million people. We have 200 million people in a country that's...
When you put it in that perspective, that's incredible.
Exactly.
Wow.
In a country the size of Texas, if it's that big, you know what I mean? So it's you really learn that you have to work hard to stand out. It's a very, very hardworking culture, which is what built my ethics in business. You know, everybody knows that I'm a very hard worker. It's something that all through my career, you know, even the things that maybe I wasn't great at, I would work until I'm great at it. You know, that's, you know, it's always my ethic. But then at the same time going to Australia, where it's just it's a place that values happiness. You know, Australia has a thing called tall poppy syndrome, which means that the tall poppy always gets cut off. So it's a society that doesn't even encourage you to want to like be
Stand
better
out.
or stand out.
Okay.
You know, it's a society that encourages being part of the crowd, which is completely opposite to everything that I had learned growing up, which is about you have to work hard. You have to work harder than everybody else. You have to stand out. You have to find your lane, find your path. So I think the clash of those two cultures was a perfect balancing act because...
Yeah, how do you reconcile the two? So, you know, Sharon today,
Yes.
combining these two mindsets, what does that look like for you today?
I think it's built the person I am today. So I am a go-getter, but I know I have very clear lines I don't cross. I think it allowed me to have very, very high moral standards. Because at the end of the day, I value my happiness. I value going to sleep with a clear conscience. It's why I do the business I do today. I could have chosen any other line of business, but I chose to go into business that makes the world a better place. And I think that's where that clash of culture, it might seem like a clash of culture, but that mixture was perfect because it built a machine in a way. It built a person who was going to work hard in service of others, as opposed to just working hard to get profit or to fill up your pocket. And I think that was the perfect balance there.
Because a lot of times people work really hard without ever asking themselves, what are they working hard for or toward?
Exactly.
And so you got really clear on, I want to, first of all, work toward my own happiness, but then also make a positive impact in the world.
In the world, exactly. And it was almost defining, what does my happiness look like, you know? And I think this came with age as well, because at the start of my career, I just wanted the next job. I just wanted the next big pay because it made me feel better about myself, especially as a person of color and especially as a woman of color. You don't get many of us around the place, you know, in corporates, in senior jobs. I didn't have many people to look up to that were directly in front of me. And so at the start of my career, it was about breaking those glass ceilings and feeling better about myself, that, oh, look at how far I've got, you know. Oh my God, I'm an exec and I'm under 30. That's great. And it's with LVMH. And that was what was important to me. And I think when I I think it was turning 30, that was a turnaround point for me, because all of a sudden I realized I started caring about identity. I started realizing, even in the journey of going to Australia and being Australian, I had assimilated a bit too far. And that's something people don't talk about. What does assimilating too far means? It means like I got to the point where I had dropped almost so much about my identity that I couldn't recognize myself anymore.
Because of the whole mindset of you don't want to stand out?
You don't want to stand out. It was also going into a very, very Western sort of Anglo kind of society where people didn't understand even what Afro hair was. You know, they didn't understand what Afro hair was. So they didn't even understand what does it mean to, like, even addressing issues like, what does it mean to be a Black female? You know, so, and the society that we live in sort of says, for us to be together, for us to coexist, let's all pretend as if we're all the same. But here's the truth, we're not all the same. And that's a good thing, you know, and I had to learn that, you know, in my 30s to actually go, no, I can be Nigerian and Australian. And at the early part of my life, when I moved to Australia, I just thought I had to be Australian. And so I had to shed all the Nigerian in me to become Australian. And I wasn't happy. And then I realized that, no, it's because I sort of assimilated too far. Some of them I needed to do, like things like, you know, I had to take on my middle name. Sharon is actually my middle name, not my first name, because it was easier for people to pronounce. And this is fact. When recruiters are looking through CVs, they literally discard CVs that are not Anglo-Saxon names because they assume you can't speak English. Fun fact.
Wow.
True. Yes. And so in my time, this is what I had to deal with. So I had to like change my name. I had to polish up my accent because the second you're speaking to somebody on the phone and you've got a thicker accent, everybody's like switched off, you know. So I remember I used to go to meetings. Back then, my last name was Butcher, pre-Sharon Chuter. And I think great names, don't I?
What a coincidence,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I would walk into meetings and meet people for the first time and go, Sharon Butcher. And they're like, Sharon Butcher? Sharon Butcher. And it's like, no matter how much you keep calling that, it still remains this, because they don't expect this to turn up because the accent sounded different, the name on paper. And I had to do all of that to sort of be, you know, non-threatening, just, you know, feel normal in a way. And I think I got to a certain point that I then realized that, okay, firstly, I now had the privilege to start deciding not to be that way. I mean, let's talk about that too. You know, you can't be like a clerk trying to climb up and go, no, I decide I'm going to do this, you know, but that's why I do what I do so that other girls wouldn't have to do or change themselves the way I had to change myself to be accepted. But I think where that intersection really came in strong was I finally understood that I could be both, that I could be an Australian and I could be a Nigerian, and I could also be a global citizen. And that's the joy that I have today, because I am so comfortable in my skin. I am so comfortable in my identity and what it means to be a Black female. I am so happy in that identity. You know, I used to always wear wigs because I wanted to have the long hair and straight hair and all of this. I toss them out. And now I go to sleep in my hair and I wake up in my hair, and it makes me so happy, just something that small. And so now I just have so much love for myself. And in what I chose to do from a business perspective was do something that makes other women feel that way, that they can unlock their identity, they can feel comfortable in their identity. A lot of people now have multiple identities. My nephews are Nigerian, French. They live in America. They were born in Mexico.
That's incredible.
Yeah, right? It's beautiful. But they also will have to learn how to manage that too. Because in a world that sort of wants you to be one thing or the other, I think the movement that I'm leading through my business and everything I do is one that says, no, we can be both and. We can be, they can be Mexican, they can be French, they can be Nigerian, and they can be American. And finding their own path that way.
I literally have chills hearing you talk. First of all, you're so fascinating, but the word beautiful just comes to mind because I think that so often we're told you have to be this or that, and it can be to different extremes for different groups of people, but everyone to some extent can relate to an identity being pushed on them and being put in a certain box. And I think what's beautiful is to look at and say, hey, we can create our own identity, and it doesn't have to look like anybody else's in the world.
Exactly. I think that's what makes the world beautiful, because the world is so colorful, because we're all so different, because, we bring in different views, different perspective. And, it's so true. One of the frustrations, I never thought I would own my own brand, by the way. I sort of always imagine or fantasize about being an entrepreneur, but to think that I would be a beauty brand owner, it was beyond, even as of 2 years ago, it was beyond my wildest imagination, right? And I got sort of pushed in this direction out of sheer frustration, because I got so tired and bored with beauty, because beauty had a singular definition of beauty. Whether it was you had to be at a point in time, and we're even complaining now, but let's remember there was a time where you had to be blonde with blue eyes, literally, to even fit into any standard of beauty. So even among women who were fair, you were brunette, so try again later.
So
exactly,
narrow. Yeah.
And so what you have was what they called beauty trends. So then you have, okay, now we're saying, it's blonde and blue eyes. Then it moves on. Okay, now what's in is tan skin. You must have the Brazilian tan. You must have this. And so at different point in time, it's almost like people sit on the table and determine who everybody needs to be.
You have your moment. Here, 2014's your year, but then the next year,
You're not beautiful anymore.
I'm not beautiful anymore. What the heck?
So think about that. I remember when I was growing up, I was really ridiculed because I was skinny. I had big lips. I had high cheekbones. I had big eyes, right? And I used to get called froggy. I used to get called everything. So I never grew up feeling beautiful. I never was chosen. I was never the girl who everybody swooned over, And then I remember it was when I sort of got into like what you guys call college, we call university. It was almost like something just like that. And everybody got hit in the head. In my view, it was almost like someone just got struck in the head. And all of a sudden people were like, oh my God, look at your lips. And I'm like, yeah, froggy lips. No, they're beautiful. And he was like, what? They're beautiful? But I think what was really good for me was being, quote unquote, ugly taught me a really important lesson in life, which is don't listen to people. Don't look outside for validation.
For good or bad.
For good or bad, look inside. So when people turned around and said, you're beautiful, guess what? I wasn't even listening to them. I was like, I don't even care about your opinion. It does not matter to me. And that's who I am today. A person who does not care about people's opinion is like, if I want to wear that, I'm going to wear it. If I want to do this look, I don't care about beauty trends. I don't care about fashion trends. I wear whatever the heck I feel like wearing on that particular day because I want to wear it. And I don't care about people's compliments as long as I look at myself in the mirror and I love what I look back. That's my philosophy. And it's not pretending. It's not anybody who's around me would tell you that. Like, I just, people will go like, oh, that's not good. I'm like, but I like it.
Hey, super quick. If this episode is inspiring you, I'd be so very grateful if you did any or all of the following. Subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast, or take a screenshot of this episode and post it to your Instagram stories. And be sure to tag @Empowerista so I can share your post. Your support seriously means so much and will allow me to continue making episodes. Lastly, if you'd like to read the key points from today's interview, head to empoweristapodcast.com for show notes.
And that's just the definition of freedom. When we don't have strings attached to what others are thinking about us and telling us what we should do, but we're coming from this own place of self-love and self-worth and operating from there. And that's where you're creating your own identity.
Exactly. And, I love to use the word freedom because I use that word a lot. And I go like, it's the place I am in life right now. And it sounds like I'm just saying it, but I feel so free and I feel so happy because I have finally almost like sort of discovered a person that, I'd always been outspoken. I'd always been not caring what people say. But then to mix that up to be a person now where I'm comfortable in my identity, I'm comfortable talking about my identity and talking to other people who come from the same background as me and just, telling them things that I wish people had told me when I was growing up. And then defining my own path, defining my own beauty. And on top of that, the cherry on the cake, creating a business and a movement that is based on all these things that I value and I care about. Oh, come on, I could be doing this for free.
Well, let's talk about that because, we just heard the beautiful story of what led to starting UOMA Beauty, but what was the actual moment where you said, now is the time to create this business and this is what I want it to be?
Yes. So, what's funny? Everybody always sort of thinks there was always that
light bulb, Oprah aha moment.
Exactly. It don't work that way. I think the good thing for me is that, and sometimes life blesses you with this, but you just get so frustrated with where you are and what you're doing. I got to the point where I was just at the point of frustration with my corporate career. I was so annoyed with the beauty industry and the way things were working. I was so annoyed with just corporations. I don't like being told what to do. It's a big problem.
You've been a rebel since you were little.
It's a big problem. I don't do things just because somebody says do it. If you say do something, I ask you why. That's always been who I am. So having a corporate career is not really suited to that sometimes because the people who really thrive are really good yes people who know how to manufacture stories. I'm a person, even my investors know that. I was actually in an investor meeting today and one of them said, oh, you should say this to our investors because they like hearing that. And I was like, I would never do that. I would never tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I believe is true. It might not be true, but I'm only going to ever utter from my mouth what I believe in. And having that attitude in corporate, it's not always good because sometimes they just need the person.
It goes against the rules.
It goes against it. It's the biggest feedback I always get. You got to learn to be more diplomatic, and diplomatic. No, I'm looking at numbers and they say this, but you're telling me to say that, So I think I had become frustrated with beauty as an industry. I had become frustrated with just corporate and just being part of a corporate entity because I just felt like our focus every day was just going in there, sunrise, sunset, grinding for money. And it was the same story every single year. We create budgets we can't hit because nobody wants to listen to you when you're creating the budget. And then you get to that year, you're struggling, and then you start manufacturing things and just making stuff up just to get there. And it's an endless grind. And it just didn't make sense to me because I was living without purpose. I was getting paid a lot of money. But deep down inside, it's like, why am I doing this? I remember I sat there, one of the final moments where I was leaving was when I asked myself, why do I do what I do? The only answer right now is to make a Frenchman richer. Right? That's it, period. Because that's why I do what I do, and little arguments you have about people's salaries, people paid, and I was a woman. I would see women come in getting paid a lot less than men. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I don't want this. And no, you got to focus on the profits. For whom? For somebody who's already a billionaire? He doesn't care about this $5,000. That person cares about the $5,000. So I was having way too much of those arguments.
Yeah.
And I knew that I needed to change. And then next came what happens to every woman, the doubt. Who am I? When I thought, I want to go set up a business. And it was like, why should anybody listen to you? You are nobody. We live in a society right now that's driven by influencers. Look at all the biggest beauty brands right there. Huda, Kylie, Fenty, Pat McGrath, all of them are driven by influencers. So right now, but beauty fashion is an influencer game. It's no longer a game that's about craft or, let's see who masters this the best and then you get to the top. It's let's see who has the most influence and then you can do whatever you want to do. And so I beat myself down like every other woman who's ever thought about doing anything, And one of the funny things with women is I a lot of times I'm inspired by men because I love how men see themselves. A man will look at a job description and he can do 1 out of 10. He's like, yes, I got that job.
Yeah.
A woman will look at a job and she can do 9 out of 10, and she'll go like, but I can't do that one. No, not suitable for me.
Sad truth.
And
yes.
she'll walk away. And I was stuck in that as well. And I had to firstly, look and go, okay, firstly, I think the biggest thing that I actually learned, and this is the most random thing, because I actually was watching a boxing match, true story. And it was the Nigerian British boxer, Anthony Joshua. And he had just defeated Klitschko, who was the reigning champion, and become a champion. And in his speech, here's what he said. He said, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. And those words changed the entire course of my life. And that was how I was able to go and set up a brand. Because all of a sudden, I changed my approach to life. Women, we always want to be perfect. We always want to know it all. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to try.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the moment that I knew I was going to go do something. That was the moment I handed in my notice that I'm leaving. And I gave very long notice and I left. And when I left, I didn't really know what I was going to do. The UOMA Beauty brand actually had iterations. At first, I wanted to do something in fashion. Because at that point, I was so mad at beauty. I was like, I'm out. I'm out. I want to go to fashion. And then it became, no, I need to do something about the situation in beauty. And another true story, I had gone to somebody else and said, okay, I want to set up a beauty brand, but I have no influence. So I don't want to be the face of the brand. I want to be behind the scenes, just working on the brand, doing what I love, but powering this brand that has these values, blah, blah, which you're perfect for, but you've got influence. So I want you to be the face of the brand. And the person turned it down. And so I was like, in that moment, normally I'm a fighter. I will try and convince that person. I was like, okay. And I went back home and I changed everything and boom, Alma was born. The name, everything was just like bang, 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 this is what I'm going to do. And at that point in time, it was out of the emotion and everything was coming out. It was like, this is not going to be about one person. This is going to be about everybody. This is going to be about everybody who's felt left out. And it was just pouring, and that was the birth of the brand. It was literally an interesting journey. And I talk about, for me, it was therapy. It was so much therapy for where I was at that point in time. My journey as a woman, trying to find, even though I was considered a confident woman, trying to find real confidence, to actually step out and do the crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to do the crazy. As an entrepreneur, here's what you're doing. You have to be both mad and narcissistic at the same time. Both of them at the same time. Because you have to somehow believe that you can do it better than the people who have been doing this for 100 years. With a lot less resources. Are you out of your natural mind? So you have to find the position to get yourself into that space.
So how do you get there? Any advice?
Look, I think you're either crazy or you're not. That's it. And that's why great entrepreneurs, you always hear it, they don't fit it in college. At work, they have problems because they're crazy, So the same crazy that's great as an entrepreneur is not usually great in a lot of other situations. So I think the good thing for me, I already had the crazy. I had to just build the narcissism. And that's the hardest part for a woman because...
Well, like you said, you dealt with the self-doubt.
Exactly.
I don't know a woman who hasn't,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
But then you really kind of nurtured that part of you that was like, what, I don't need to be perfect.
I don't need to be perfect.
Need to try.
I just need to try. And that attitude honestly changes everything. Because in this whole brand, here's the funny thing. If you told me when I started this was December 2017, I registered the UOMA Beauty business. At that time, all I was doing was register it, create a website, in terms of just lock the domain name in. And then it was, okay, what next? And so the whole building of this entire brand has been, what next?
One step at a time.
I don't have it all figured out. People think you've got it all figured out. It's a myth. We don't have it figured out. I don't have next year all figured out. I know my investors are probably going to hear this, but I don't have it all figured out. And that's what makes it magical because you learn every day. You have to be, like for me, be prepared to pivot. Don't be so attached to anything, because it's a journey. It's like a baby. You're learning it. It's learning you. And that's been my UOMA Beauty journey. And that's why I said the biggest change for me was that mindset. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
Because every day I just wake up and I just want to try. It's the same thing when everything started kicking off and my emails started going out of control. I've always been the girl who clears out my inbox. Even if it means me doing 24 hours, I'll clear it out. I have over 46,000 unread emails right now. But how do I manage through that, even through my OCD and wanting to get through every email, is I'm just going to try. I'm going to do as many as I can, and whatever I can't do, we'll figure it out.
It's good enough. Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you're so rooted in your purpose and what your brand stands for. And I'm sure that carries you a long way. So talk to me about that. I know that your brand stands for diversity, for inclusivity, but even beyond that, just beyond individual identity. Can you talk about that?
Authenticity is the word I want to use. Authenticity. And I feel like I can talk about authenticity because, like I said, I grew up being the weirdo. I've always been the weirdo, the one who's been laughed at, blah, blah, blah. And it was until later in life I found my talents. And I found that everything people criticized me for, having a short attention span, doing too many things at once, they became critical to the success of my career. So weird, different, whatever, it's all about context. It's all about perspective. It's about what are you doing? I always say to people, are you a microwave trying to function as a fridge? You know what I mean? Like if you are, a microwave is a pretty useless tool to cool anything down, right? But it's a pretty effective tool if you need to heat something up. And that's just the thing with life, is that sort of puzzle and allowing yourself flow to find that place that you fit in. And so for me, when I talk about identity, authenticity, it's so deep because it was so important. It was important to me to stay who I was. You know, when I look at people now who are coming to me and going like, oh, I'm so happy you're doing what you're doing because blah, blah. And I think about, what if I had changed? What if I had assimilated? What if I had done all those things that everybody wanted me to do? And so through this brand, that's what, first of everything else, is encouraging people. That's what I think I'm doing. Encouraging people and hopefully enabling them just by being there. Because sometimes we underestimate the power of just being there. We think the only way we can impact society is by doing this or that. And sometimes just you doing what you're doing and being there is enough, right? I hope in doing that, it encourages everybody, black, white, male, female, straight, gay, whatever it is, whatever tag you've got, to just love yourself. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. You only get one shot at this life. Why spend it trying to be somebody else? And that's at the heart of everything we do. That's why when I came into the beauty industry with Alma Beauty, our message wasn't, hey, 51 Shades of Foundation. Diversity and inclusivity is a buzzword. It's overused. Sometimes I don't even like using that word because I think it cheapens the message. We're not talking about diversity and inclusivity. We're talking about authenticity. We're not selling foundations. We're selling self-love. And everything else is a souvenir. Our products are a souvenir of the experience of being part of this movement. And this is it's a self-loving movement. You know, it's a feel-good movement. It's come in there. You know, we talk a lot about identity. I talk a lot about my experience as a black person. I celebrate my culture and why do I do that? I do that because I come from a culture that everything good about our history is stripped out. I had, you know, it's why when, you know, I had, like I said, this brand has been a journey of self-discovery. You know, why was it when I went to Australia, I was so embarrassed to tell people I'm from Nigeria, you know, because every time I told people I'm from Nigeria, they'll be like, and you can see the look in their face. And then the next question, how come you can speak English? You know, you can see them looking at you with pity and sympathy and going, thank God you're here now. Almost like we've rescued you from your hellhole. You know, you guys must have been starving, you know, and so, you know, when you come from an identity or culture that, you know, it's sort of being perpetuated, you shouldn't be proud of it. And once again, through this brand, I remind myself and other people all the things that we've got to be proud of. And I hope in doing so, I hope that by people encountering the Alma Beauty brand and seeing how proud I am and we are to be Afro, they are in turn proud to be whoever they are. I cannot tell their story because I have not lived their story, but I can tell my story and hope my story inspires them. And that's what we do through the Alma Beauty brand. We tackle things head on. We talk about, you know, being black and black identity. You come on our green and it's all these black faces in there. And yet we talk about inclusivity. So some people who's like, that's, you know, love it. No, that's inclusivity. Inclusivity is the ability to be yourself, yet get a seat on the table. If you're giving me a seat on the table because I've changed and I'm somebody else, you're not including me. You're including you and you're including an idea. To include me, you have to go.
Accept me.
Accept me. And to accept me, you've got to accept me. And this is where the brands get it wrong. They create 50 shades of foundation and 60 shades of foundation, yet they don't care about the people behind the foundation. Who is she? Who is he? Where did they come from? What's their story? How are they feeling? they're so detached from that. They're so focused on just numbers and focused on trends and this and that. And that's why we do things
It's not coming from an authentic place.
It's not coming from there.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you have UOMA Beauty, which is a brand that is Afropolitan and all of this, and we include everybody. It's like in an Afropolitan brand, you find a foundation that is for the, fairest of skin, for the deepest of skin. In an Afropolitan brand, you find a foundation that says, hey, you have got fair skin. So you know what? The things your skin needs is completely different to what a girl with brown skin needs. So I'm going to create you a product that's not one size fits all. I'm going to customize a formula for what you need. And that's true inclusivity, because I have not changed who I am. I am inviting you to my Afro party. The door is wide open. And when you come in, I recognize you as you. I don't say, where's your Afro hair? Get out. You know what I mean? I go, you are beautiful. You're this beautiful, fair lady. Come and grab a seat. You know what? I've actually taken time to actually even research your skin to understand what you need. And here is something that is custom made for you. That's true inclusivity. And that's why we said we're rewriting the rules of inclusivity and diversity and giving it a true meaning, in that everybody's welcome to our tribe. All the misfits are welcome. All the weirdos are welcome. Come on in, come in fast. Enjoy our culture. Enjoy a culture that hasn't been celebrated enough. And it's so fresh and it's so new and it's so fun and colorful. And in doing that, we want you to celebrate yourself in here. It's not about just celebrating me. Celebrate you. Tell me about you. I want to get to know you. And people are going to start seeing that more and more in the brand with the collaborations that we start doing, in the next few years. Bringing other people's stories and crossing cultures and clashing those together and really doing justice to it as opposed to appropriating. So, yes.
I love it. Well, your story is so beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to share it with us.
Thank you. No, such a pleasure.
Well, that's it for today's show. As a reminder, show notes are available at empoweristapodcast.com, and I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe, review, or share this podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and have an amazing week.